Hello, friends. Joe Lynch here from the Logistics of Logistics. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is taking the uncertainty and risk out of freight with my friend Erika Voss. How's it going, Erika?
I'm good, Joe. How are you?
Doing great. I'm glad we're finally doing this interview. We have missed this multiple times, and finally we hit the record button. So anyway, Erika, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Joe. Couldn't agree with you more. It's been great to finally catch up with you and looking forward to this podcast. For those of you who are joining, my name is Dr. Erika Voss. I actually reside here in Seattle, Washington, so roughly about 2 hours north of our DAT corporate office there in Beaverton, Oregon. And just really looking forward to having this conversation with you, Joe, and talk about the risk and the cyber practices, especially as we think about it from a freight logistics standpoint. And then the company I work for is naturally DAT.
Yep. DAT or DAT. I know you guys say both, but DAT stands for Dial a Trucker originally, right?
It does. It does. That's always my fun fact of I didn't know what DAT stood for until about 6 months ago after being here. Someone said, "Oh, it stands for dial a truck." Back in the day, we literally dialed on telephones, and that's how we sold advertising for partnering with Dial a Truck. And I was like, wow. And in our Denver office, it's cool. We have an actual wall that shows the old way we used to do things and the pictures of the advertising, the actual good old fashioned dialing phone that literally used to pick up and call people on, which is cool.
For people who are not close to the trucking business, everyone in trucking, I think, knows who DAT is. But for those who are outside of the trucking space, what is DAT? What do you guys do? It's a lot more than dialing a truck right now.
It is a lot more than dialing a truck. It's freight and analytics. So it's not just the traditional load board that I think people used to know dial a truck for, DAT for. It's all things around freight. It's all things around the analytics and how you can get the best value for your dollar and how we think about the load to truck ratio and how we think about the cradle to grave and what are the analytics into making sure you have the right intelligence and the right platform to really essentially say, here's where I can move the freight across all of North American supply chain.
Yeah, it's just changed so much. I said to you before we hit the record button that I just got back from Manifest and I was talking to our friend Ken Adamo from DAT. And I did a little short interview with him there. And I made this observation that it used to be companies like DAT would say, we'll get you a truck, the load board. And now the expectation is so much greater and the services are so much greater. You guys provide tech and a nice tech experience, but also expertise and the analytics that you just referenced. So it's so much more than give me a truck. I think that's true for the whole industry. It feels like it's all been upgraded. The expectations of all of our customers have changed.
Yeah, it really has. And I think that's the piece that I don't think people realize, like what was supply chain for us back in 1978, 1980s, and probably even really 1990s was great and it was simple. And so now to be here in 2025, it's being the largest online marketplace. It's being the delivery service of how we look at freight matching and how we combine data analysis and be able to say, hey, here's some actual insights and market trends and here's what capacity availability. It's a new world. It's not just traditional supply chain anymore. And it's not just traditional, like you said, I'm calling you and I want to pick up a truck and be able to deliver my load of steel from Beaverton, Oregon to Philadelphia. It's not that easy anymore. And it's also not that simple anymore. There's ways to really understand the pricing and the competitive advantages and what we do for brokers, shippers, carriers, and how we can provide that real-time market data to actually enhance their business and capabilities. It's unprecedented what it is today versus what it was 30 years ago or even 40 years ago.
Yep. And I don't know if should talk about this very much because I don't know anything about it. And I don't know how much you're able to talk about, but I know you guys just acquired Trucker Tools.
We did just recently acquire Trucker Tools. It's exciting. They joined us in December of 2024 and just became part of the corporate family here as we think about growth and scale and what we're doing with our brokers and shippers and carriers. And I think it's just really great and fantastic that we have them joining us.
Yep. And I know you're busy integrating.
It's always about integrating.
Yep. So, Erika, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined the mothership that is DAT?
Yeah, always a good question. So for me, grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I've always said I've been basically a born and raised native. Started in Oregon, essentially is where I was born and raised, and then grew up in Washington State as well, and then naturally lived on the East Coast for a little bit, and then of course lived in California. I've had a great upbringing. Really, I have no complaints about it for the most part. I am a diehard Oregon Duck, so I do feel it's important to say that, especially as you think about that.
Great year for you guys.
It has been a great year, except for, of course, losing the second time around to Ohio, but I'm not going to be too bitter about it. But it was overall, it was still a great game. Both games were great, I think, more than anything. And then, yeah, as far as my career, I've had an incredible career. I literally can also say the same thing. I've had no complaints about it. I've worked really in cybersecurity, or actually, I would say security, for over 30 years now. Started in physical security, got into crisis management, business continuity, DR, all things around physical security, then got into cybersecurity. So I can speak from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, which is great. And I've enjoyed it. I love that my career has taken me to where I'm at today. Very well rounded, I think, when able to talk about risk or compliance or supply chain. It's just a passion that I've always had. And I've worked for all the great large tech companies, from Amazon to Microsoft to Salesforce and Oracle, and then did some small companies as well along the way, and then some startups. And it's been great. It teaches you different levels of how to build the right, even just from, I'd say, from a security standpoint, how to build the right program and how to really address risk, and how to be able to say it's not a one size fits all, which I think sometimes people think it is from a risk perspective, or even from a cyber perspective. It's, oh, if I did this thing in protecting the supply chain of the factories of Microsoft, that's the same thing that I can apply to supply chain. And it's not. It's different. You've got to really understand your business model, and you've got to really understand where you have the right trade-offs in order to actually be successful.
Mention that you're a doctor. What is your doctorate in?
Yes. My doctorate's in insider threats. So I actually graduated in 2023 with my doctorate focusing on really cybersecurity and detecting early warning signs. And so I always like to tell people a good way to think about what that means is, we have people out there who ask for access all the time. Edward Snowden was a great example. He went around and continually asked for access until he basically got it. And so there were early warning signs. And so those early warning signs, how do you pay attention to them? How do you report them? It's a world of 2025. We don't want to believe there's bad people inside our companies, but there is. Whether it's malicious or not is the investigation that has to happen. But there is always an insider threat in every single company. And that's a new risk for people to really understand and grab a hold of. But there are people who intentionally try to get hired with a company and they want to cause harm. That's part of it's part of an attack.
Yep. So when and why did you join DAT? You had options.
Yeah, I did. And DAT for me, honestly, was staying tried and true to supply chain. I got my first taste of supply chain when I worked for Amazon, got a bigger piece of it when I worked for Microsoft, and then just always had this passion around supply chain and what it meant. And it's an area where, quite frankly, I think we need more cybersecurity focus. And it's an area where we have to think about lateral movement, or think about risk, or think about what it means. And it's just a space I've always had a passion for. And I fell in love with supply chain and being able to go deep within it, whether it was from a business continuity perspective. Who are you outsourcing your supply chain to, when your vendors from a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, just how deep it is, and just how much information and knowledge and really data that sits within that, and how we think about sharing that. And so when DAT, I spoke with them about the role and what they were looking for, it was an opportunity, honestly, on some level, to jump into it, because I had not done anything on the freight side of the house. I've done supply chain for a long time, but specifically with trucking, it was like, gosh, this is new. It's not the same technology challenges that I would have. It's not the same high tech challenges that I would have. It was something very different. And so when I went through the whole process and was offered the role, it was a no-brainer. It was like, why not come here? It's like an opportunity to build it from the ground up and make security be the center of excellence, and make us say, hey, here's how we're protecting our customers, and to be able to build that strength, and from a cyber perspective, and even just from a company lens of customer trust. It was a great opportunity.
Yep. And I'm from automotive originally, and automotive, I always call it the biggest, baddest supply chain on earth. It's a fairly mature industry when I left. And I worked at a little 3PL, and I've never left. I've been in this industry. And one of the things, this is just my observation, I'm sure somebody else could push back on this, but my observation was, when I got here, it was like, whoa, this is like an industry that time forgot. They're 20 years behind automotive. As I thought about it, talked to people on my podcast, and just learned about the industry, I started realizing why. Because those supply chains that we're trying to connect, span across the world, and they're mom and pop companies and big companies and small companies and different time zones, different cultures, different currency. It's really hard to wire it. And then to our problem now, once we did wire it, it's hard to wire it safely. So there wasn't a whole bunch of gaps for the bad guys to get in.
You're spot on. You're spot on that. And it's an area I think that again, like people have to really recognize and understand that supply chain is that. It's not just a software security problem anymore. It's like the SolarWinds attacks of the world. It's supply chain. It's you have to think about the people. You have to think about the process. You have to think about your data. You have to think about your network. You have to think about your infrastructure. You have to think about cloud. And there's so many different ways now that supply chain needs cybersecurity to be a focus, and it really needs to be the future of what we're doing and how we want to deliver cybersecurity within that.
Yep. And I think the transportation part of the supply chain is particularly challenging because we have all these mom and pop small trucking companies that we depend on. It's not like we'll get rid of them. We need them. They absolutely have to be part of the equation. And then more and more freight is going through brokers. And I think there's 25,000 and about 22,000 are small. And so those smaller companies, especially the trucking companies, you can't expect them to be saying, yeah, we look forward to a big tech investment to prevent cybersecurity. They're like, Joe, I'm just trying to stay in business. Don't talk to me about upgrading my technology. And by the way, the guys who are buying the trucks, that's the ultimate technology in our business. I encourage them to buy the trucks. But how do we upgrade this space when we have smaller companies that are low margin who are fighting for their lives? And this last year or two, we lost 5,000 brokers and God knows how many little carriers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an area, again, I mean, I come back to it. It's an area where I'm always fascinated with, even in the time that I've been with D, that I'm surprised at how many customers, whether it's like you said, it's a small carrier or even a broker getting started and building that growth. It's an area where we do the right things from a technology perspective, whether you adopt cloud best practices or run your stuff in Azure or AWS or Oracle Bare Metal, like whichever GCP, whichever cloud platform you want to do. We forget that there's a maintenance to it. We forget that there's a way you have to protect things when you do stuff like that. Like you could have the most sophisticated technology platform, but you do still have to think about how you secure it. You do have to think about that data. And I think that's an area where when I look at the supply chain, especially within transportation, I'm a little dumbfounded that we don't invest in cyber the way that we should. And I say that because the customers I've talked to, I always ask, great, you've got challenges. How can I help you on phishing attacks or identity attacks or even just registering devices or multi-factor? And I outsource my IT, or, oh, I don't have a cyber person. And it's okay, but how do you do those things? And again, it goes back to why either outsource, which is fine, but that's still a significant cost, or I've got a tech person you can talk to who knows cyber, where you look at somebody like me who's been in the field for, a long time, where it's like, cyber is now you need to be disciplined in a domain because it is so big. Your attacks are so strong and they're so deep within that I don't understand why we're not also investing in a cybersecurity analyst, which is a thing I constantly tell people. You can get a great analyst for $60, $70, $80,000 a year. And it's if your business is hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars or even upward to $1 billion, what's that brand reputation worth to you if you don't invest? Are you willing to take the hit and go out of business? You don't want to, but it's like, why are you not investing in cyber as just part of your good hygiene?
Yeah, we were supposed to do this interview in Cleveland, Ohio at the NMFTA Cybersecurity Conference. And for those who are not familiar with National Motor Freight Transportation Association, they're the standard setting body for LTL carriers, but they took the lead for all cybersecurity for transportation. So I was supposed to do this interview with you there, but while we were there, I don't know what speeches you heard, but there's somebody, I think the White House representative said there was like 500,000 openings for cybersecurity people. And we're just starting. I'm a young man who shovels my mom's walk. I was asking, hey, I know you're off to school. What are you doing? And he said cybersecurity. And I was like, hallelujah. So there's a program at our local, it's in Dearborn at the local university. And I was like, hallelujah. We need them. And by the way, I live close to Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay. Michigan. Yeah.
And I walk around Ann Arbor sometimes late at night, and there's always all these guys wandering around. And every once in a while, I notice that where they work, and they're all cybersecurity guys. They're there all night long. And there's a number of companies that are based there. Don't even particularly care if you have a degree. They'll train you because they're that interested in heads.
Yeah. And it's a spot and it's always a field. And it's funny when people ask me and they reach out and it's, oh, I'd love some career advice. And I tell people cybersecurity, you could go out and Google it today and it'll tell you there's over 3 million jobs open in the
Oh,
US.
really?
It's,
Wow. So it's even more than I said.
yeah, it's massive. But I think to your point, there's always somebody who's attacking something. There's always somebody who is looking to do some type of harm or wants to see what they can get into. And it's an area where I tell people, if you want to have a, rewarding career, and if you want to spend the time and you're willing to do the training and the investment, like cybersecurity is one of the hottest fields to be in. And it will always be that way just because of the sheer amount of attacks that happen.
Yes.
And it's a space that I love and I've always loved. And I always tell people I would do what I do for free because I love it so much, even though people say you shouldn't say that. But if you're passionate about your field and if you're passionate about your career, why would you not want to go in and help and be a part of that? And so that's a big piece of it for me is I always enjoy the companies that need the help and say, how do we do it? And there's a whole process and a program and a procedure of how we can build things out and nail your basics and have good cyber hygiene. And yes, focus on the future. And you want to do those things with AI or identity-based attacks. But if your foundation isn't strong and secure and you have those cracks in it, you're not going to be successful to grow in the future.
And I do think people, I've used myself as an example. I've been doing the podcast 7 years. I didn't talk about cybersecurity until probably the last, 6 months, maybe a year. And because I became more aware of it, people started mentioning it to me. Just before COVID, I helped a very large company. They spend a lot of money on transportation and logistics, and I helped them select a 3PL. It was a great project for me. I enjoyed it. It wasn't full-time. It was because I was an advisor more than anything to help pick the 3PL. And I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I called one of the guys at the company. I said, I have memorized that contract in my head, all the changes we just kept. And I said, we had probably 10 big areas that we were looking for in the 3PL. And we had IT, of course, technology was very important, but I don't think we put anything in there for cybersecurity. And I know the company they went to, we picked, definitely is on the cutting edge of that. But I feel like we're going to very soon run into all the Fortune 500, all the Fortune 5,000 are going to say, we have no choice but to up our game, which means if you're going to work with us, you're going to have to play to a higher level. You're going to have to prove to us that you are capable of being a partner that won't compromise us.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think that's the piece that people don't realize, that supply chain risk management, your vendor risk management, who you're outsourcing things to, and what are they doing with your data or their connections. You have to pay attention to that. And if you're not paying attention to that today, I'll go back and say it. It's not if you get breached, it's when you get breached, because you need to follow your data. You need to follow what happens and where it's going. And that vendor supply chain and being able to look within that and, what you're outsourcing to that's the area. You've got to figure out how to maintain that security first, zero trust approach. You've got to think about lateral movement. You've got to think about your passwords. You got to think about phishing. There's so many different things now that it's not just a simple thing that says, oh, I can do this X thing and now I'm secure. And if you're not,
there's no silver bullet.
There is no silver bullet. And it's an area I always tell people, if you're not focusing on your actual architecture, like you're going to end up being dead in the water. Move everything you want in the cloud. Great. You still need to think about the architecture of what your cloud is doing. What is the model? What is the capabilities? What's the function?
I think what that means to novices like me is that you're going to have to hire the right people to do this. Am I right to say that if I'm working with that I can borrow some of your knowledge?
Yeah, you definitely can. I always tell our customers, I tell everybody, like, please reach out. That's also just my job as the security person here for DAT it is about customer trust. And it's an area where that is like the number one core value to me when I think about the work I'm doing within DAT and externally is how do we make sure we're maintaining that customer trust with the people that use DAT, and how are we leveraging our capabilities and functionality, and how do we make sure that we're providing the right modern tech stack, but also looking within my own architecture and say, do I have the right security detections and response in place? Do I have the right preventions? And things like that. And that's what you should expect. You should very easily say, I want time with Erica and I want to be able to understand how does DAT help me and how can I help our customers in return. That customer trust is huge, especially if you've had a breach or if you do end up having a ransomware attack. If you can't solve for your customers right out of the gate and provide that communication to them on here's the things I'm doing, here's the things that I'm addressing, your customer is that's your revenue at the end of the day. And if your customers are leaving you, then what?
Yeah, I'm very full of cliches when it comes to this, but you use the term when, not if, which I love that. One that I say is that old saying that you used to hear is trust but verify. And then somebody not so long ago said, no, it's verify, then trust. And then the other cliche that I like to throw around, and I think we are headed for a cyber 9/11 where some part of the economy is taken down or greatly compromised. And on the day after that, you're going to look at who your partners are. And I suggest you do it now rather than later. And I got to tell you, you're a cybersecurity person, so it probably doesn't matter. But if I know what you would say, if I was at a big company or even a small company and I was a shipper and someone would say, yeah, are you doing all the things to prevent risk? I'm not just talking about freight fraud. Freight fraud is horrible and it can cost us a truckload or whatever. Cybersecurity is so much worse because I could get the whole company taken down by a cybersecurity attack. And I think that you'd have to be, at this point, all the big companies must be leaning on their transportation partners to up their game.
Yeah, every company does. And it's like the same concept. It's really, again, you're looking at that vendor risk management, your third parties you're outsourcing to. And it comes down to the big conversation I always tell people is what is your cyber hygiene? Where do you have monitoring going on? Where do you have detections in place? What's the login activity? What's the identity of the people and how they're accessing your environment? Again, it comes back to the architecture. Do you have things segmented? Do you have your critical assets actually valued correctly? And was it easy to get access to a critical asset or is it not? It comes down to what is the monitoring and detection and response? That's really the bread and butter at the end of the day. It's not having strong passwords. That's just good hygiene you should already be having. It's being able to have that detections and response in place and being able to go after that and say, I can detect something from 3 or 4 hours down to milliseconds. Those milliseconds are going to matter at the end of the day. And
I feel like the strong password thing. How many passwords do you have?
yeah, I have one. I have a master password and it gets me into everything I need to. But
See, because you know what you're doing. The rest of us have 1,000 passwords, and they go, "Hey, Joe, you used that password before." You're like, "Yeah, no kidding." I feel like people saying create passwords are they the same people saying give your cat this pill?
yeah. And there's always the argument too, which I love to have, is are passwords even effective anymore? We talk about passwordless. We talk about biometrics and fingerprinting and the scanning and all those things. It comes back to what's a level of security you want to have.
So what about the two-factor? Is that better than passwords at this 1 minute?
It is because if you think about it, and it's so funny. I have this conversation with
Please explain what that is.
Yeah, I have this conversation with people is if you think about logging into your bank, like normally you would just put in what is a password, correct? And it's okay, yeah. And then you're inside your bank and you're going, oh, okay, great. I can access the things I want to. Where now two-factor says, give me another form of identity that says, is this really Erica logging in? So maybe I want you to send me a text that tells me here's a 6-digit code. That additional second layer of multi-factor or that second layer of authentication is key. It's actually saying, yes, I know Erica's logging in, but I also want to verify. It's the trust but verify model, or it's the verify but trust. I'm verifying this is Erica logging into her bank and oh, yes, she's got this 6-digit code and she was able to enter it. And great. Now we've actually verified and trusted that this is Erica. And then you go in and look at the bank account. Why would you not want to do that on any system you're logging into? Why would you not? Don't get me wrong. I do understand some things are expensive, but if you think about it, wouldn't you want that extra layer of defense? Wouldn't you want to be able to say, gosh, if I can verify that it's Joe logging in and I ask for him to give me a 6-digit code in return as one more layer of defense, why would you not want to do that? Why would you not want to like provide that second layer of defense and go, wow, now I actually know not only do you have to verify that you're logging in, but it's that it's also secure. It's more secure than just a password. A password is easily cracked. It's easily falsified. It's easily something you could brute force against, and honestly, you can social engineer it. So why would you not want to have that second layer of defense And that's the thing. I think people need to recognize you should have an authenticator app when you should want to have that second layer of defense. You would want two layers of defense to protect your money. Why wouldn't you want two layers of defense to protect your identity or protect your business?
I like it. I know I'm going to lose you in 20 minutes, so I want to cover a few things. First, I want to talk to you about identity.
Yes.
Please give me your thoughts on identity.
Yeah, identity really it's your digital footprint, I think is the best way is what I would tell you. And the best thing I would say is it's representing you as a user and it's saying, hey, as you gravitate through your network, for example, so it's saying it's Erica throughout the DAT network and it's saying, I want you to be securely managed. I want you to make sure you don't have unauthorized access. It's making sure that you are who you say you are. So if I log in and ask me for that second layer of defense, that second layer of authentication, great. We actually know it's Erica. And so then you start going through identity is really, are you saying who you are? And are you accessing things you're allowed to? Do we have the right encryption, which means are we protecting sensitive data or critical data? And you're making sure that you have the right access across. Again, you're thinking about it from a architectural standpoint and why I want to make sure that identity is at the forefront of all the things. And it starts with you. And if you don't protect your identity, then you're going to end up being dead in the water. And so a flip side to that, which I tell people is, if you're not shopping for a new home or if you're not shopping for a new car, why are you leaving your credit exposed? Why do you not have, your credit frozen? Why do you not have things turned on to protect your identity? Because if you don't, that's the easiest thing that's going to come and attack against you.
Oh boy. So how are people getting their identity stolen in the transportation logistics space right now?
I mean, it varies. There's not one good answer I could give you for how people get their identity stolen. A lot of it is something has been, abused. For example, if you signed up for a Ticketmaster account and that Ticketmaster is a massive database that stores your information, if that database has been breached, your identity gets sold over and over again. And that's how people tend to take that data, which is part of your identity, and then they start piecing it together with other things that they find online about you. You might have a Facebook account open, or you might have your address on how to find you. And it's, oh, if I can find Erika Voss and I can find that she's out there on Facebook, for example, and it says she's in Seattle, Washington. Cool. I'm starting to piece together your identity. How many Erika Vosses are in Seattle? That's how you start building this identity-based attack. And that's how you're able to say, here's where I can go steal your information. And then if I send you an email and it's got a link in it and you click on that link and you enter your credentials, great. I've now phished you for your credentials. And now I can come back and say, there's more information, and it's designed to trick those employees and it's designed to take your identity from you. And so that's a lot of it. And so you have to literally be secure. You have to think about having strong passwords or strong authentication, multi-factor authentication. And you've got to do continuous security awareness training. And you've got to think about, do you have the right detections and response in place to know if your identity is breached or if your identity is stolen, how to protect it? Again, go back to the credit report scenario. If you're not buying anything, why is your credit left open? Go lock it down. It takes literally 3 seconds to log into Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, and you could turn a security freeze on. Then that requires somebody to contact you to verify, hey, are you applying for a $300,000 mortgage? Why would you not want to protect yourself?
I think first off, they don't know. When I say they, I mean me. You say they, I mean me. But also, it's not awareness that there's a real problem. It's a real problem when it happens to you or happens to a loved one. And then before that, or happens to your business.
And
But
again, it comes back to that statement. Like I said, it's not if it attacks you, it's when does it attack you? When do you care? When do you pay attention? And why are you waiting to be hit? It's like there are simple things you could do. Again, back to my doctor, there are early warning signs you could do to lock yourself down and to lock your identity down. So you've got to be vigilant.
I've said this many times before on my podcast. Some number of large companies have sustainability goals. You have to start now. You have to start saying, okay, we're going to put one metric onto our KPIs, one new KPI. Do it now, because you can't just add a PowerPoint slide later and say, yeah, that'll be enough. That's our commitment to the environment. Doesn't matter. And I feel like at some point, you're going to be locked out of certain businesses because they're going to say, we want you to be this and you're not this. I think what's going to catch most of us up is when a customer says, here is the standard and you no longer meet it. And so I think it begins maybe in our business with the shippers becoming aware that, hey, I could get in big trouble if I'm working with the wrong transportation guys.
Yeah, and it is. And I think you see it now. NIST, for example, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, they have a cybersecurity framework known as the CSF, and it's great. And I love it. And it's out there and it's recommended and people want to do it, but there's no legal requirement that says I have to. There's no regulatory requirement. It's a volunteer based framework. And yes, it's great, but I don't think cyber is going to get better if we don't start making changes around you're required to use a framework. You're required to have the minimum baseline to address risk or the minimum baseline to address zero trust or the things around identity. And I think that's the piece that we need to get to as a cybersecurity organization is build what is that center of excellence we want to be.
So is this something that DAT can help me get to?
We can. And it's an area I always love to talk to people about is how do you build the right zero trust within your organization? And how do you think about it from an enterprise architectural standpoint? It's things that I talk about naturally, of course, with inside DAT is how do we continue to build out what our zero trust maturity model is? And how do we continue to focus on the customer and without going into giving up proprietary information, actually, because you don't want to talk about your cyber posture. It's more of there are things that we can do to help you. And there are things that I want to do to help you and how you think about it from an identity standpoint and how you think about it from an architecture standpoint. But it's an area that for me is the one thing I do want to see us change as an industry for freight and logistics is how do we do zero trust? How do we say we need to do it from a transportation standpoint?
And so what is zero trust for people who are not soaking in that every day?
Yeah, it's zero trust basically. It's just a strategic investment in your cybersecurity posture that says all users and their devices, it's we untrust them by default until we actually verify it is you. So whether you're dialing in from your phone, Joe, or you're dialing in or you're accessing through a device such as your laptop or an iPad or some type of tablet, it's we don't trust you until we've actually verified it's you. So it's really designed to prevent data breaches and actually limit lateral movement across an organization until we verify that it's actually you. And you do it based on a session. So like when you log in, it's Joe is logging into a session to start his podcast. I don't trust you until I verified it's you. And so that's the zero trust that you want to get to. And it sounds weird because people are just like, oh my God, it sounds like another layer.
I trust you, Erica. I don't know why you don't trust me.
Yeah, exactly. You should trust me more than anything. But yeah, that's what zero trust really is. And that's really where we need to go is it's a piece that I keep challenging our industry is come help me solve for zero trust transportation. It's going to take our entire industry to do it.
It was telling you were at the same cybersecurity conference I was at. And there was a lot of people there who shared their stories of woe and top companies. This is not something that the slackers get hit with. Top companies, and I say it all the time, every time I talk about this topic, AT&T got hit last year. And then shortly after that, it was not a hack, but it was a vulnerability that took down Microsoft, the airlines, and that was CrowdStrike. And those are, so I think in a lot of ways, there's no shame to this. And I know when it comes to phishing, we all get those emails and we should delete them, but sometimes we open them accidentally because we're quickly going through our email inbox. And one of the things I learned at the cybersecurity conference is, hey, if you accidentally do something that you probably weren't supposed to click on that unknown document, you should just talk to your cybersecurity team or your IT team. And to some extent, no one wants to be the buffoon, right? Hey, Erica, guess what I did? I did exactly what you said not to do. But if you don't say this whole thing when, not if, then it kind of people go, I just hope no one finds out that I was the weak link. So we got to take the shame out of the whole thing.
And I think a lot of it too, and this is a big area that I always try to tell people, and I think DAT has been phenomenal with me about it. And just what I'm trying to do, again, to help us with from a customer lens is you've got to be willing to make it part of your education, awareness, and training. You've got to make it part of your culture, and you've got to make it part of how it's, to your point, it's not a shame game. And also there's no harm in saying, I think I did something wrong. And I think that's a piece of when you look at hiring the right cybersecurity leader, it's look for that person who's going to actually spend the time doing the education, awareness, and training with you. There's no shame in rolling up your sleeves and being part of the solution. And I think that's a thing that I wish more people would understand with cybersecurity is and I always tell people this, I want you to run down the hall to me and tell me, oh my God, I clicked on something I shouldn't have, because it's very simple for me to help you get in and stop the potential attack and almost make it more of a the more people you report, or the more people that click on a phishing link and report it, it's almost gamify it and say, cool, we've got a top reporter this month, and give them like a little cybersecurity badge of, hey, you've reported the phishing attack, versus I'm just going to not say anything and then watch it literally crawl across my network and become something really catastrophic. And I think that's an area where, I don't know, it's okay to have your hand caught in the cookie jar. It's what you do, taking your hand out of it and telling on yourself.
Yeah, it also reminds me, I'm old enough to remember some of these things, is that there used to be like a quality department. There's nothing wrong with the quality department, but really the goal should be all the departments are focused on quality. And so if you are the quality department, you should be reaching out and building the quality infrastructure throughout the whole company. And that's the same now with, I think in a lot of ways, we have this stereotypical IT guy who sits and no one talks to him. And he is almost outside the building in terms, no one really knows those guys down there, those gals down there. And they tend to be introverted. I think you have the right idea, which is, hey, we're going to be the ambassadors to good cybersecurity hygiene.
Yeah, and it's spot on. And again, back to what you say, it's funny. It's the thing that I really try to focus on with people is that department of know, but that know is the KNOW. The more knowledge you share with me, the better cybersecurity best practices I can share back with you. And I think, again, but I also think that's an element separate from being strategic or being a cybersecurity expert or being in the field for a number of years. I do think you actually need to be an extrovert. I do think you need to, in some capacity, be a person who's, maybe extrovert's not even the best word, but you do need to get out there. You do need to get
facing
out. Yeah, you do need to be customer facing, and you do need to be able to talk about cyber hygiene best practices. And I say that because it's 2025 and people are still clicking on links. We've not done great as a cybersecurity community because people are still clicking on links and losing, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or their environment is being taken down. And it's like, we've not done great as security professionals. So we have to get out there and do education, awareness, and training. And we have to get out there and tell people, like, here's good best practices, and here's where we could be better, and here's where we could be the best, and be able to tell people, if you feel like you've been compromised, the first thing to do is to report it. And then we're going to help you change your passwords. We're going to help you scan your environment, or scan your laptop, or scan your phone. It's all those things. And it takes a matter of minutes to ask for help. And it could take a lifetime to make sure you're actually helped.
Yep. So I know I'm going to lose you in 6 minutes. So let's wrap this bad boy up.
All right, let's do it.
So I'm talking to my friend Erika Voss, and we're talking about taking the uncertainty and the risk out of freight. And Erika's part of DAT. And I don't know what percentage of freight goes through DAT every day, but it is a very large percentage. And it's a tool that carriers use, shippers use, and brokers use. So it's the whole enchilada right now. And everybody's looking to DAT, obviously for trucks and for tech and for more and more analytics. But now we can start looking to DAT also as guide us through this. Yeah. And we talked about the challenge is there. And again, back to the cliches, it's when and not if top organizations are being hacked. If you grow to a certain size, there's a chance that you're going to be hacked. And we really have to get to that zero trust model with everybody. So we have to hit, you mentioned a lot of the just good hygiene, good habits. But there's some things that have to be implemented. And I think as much as anything, it's changing the culture and saying, this is not just an IT guy problem. This is everyone's problem. And if you think it just belongs to one guy, then it's not going to work, because I heard this at the cybersecurity conference. We have to have kind of a top down in the industry, but also a bottom up from the person in the individual. It really needs that concerted an effort, because we are really under attack, not just from for the ransom guys, they want money, the hacker and the activist guys, they might just want some cause. But then there's these foreign actors who might be propped up by a government. They are all after us. So, and we are the backbone of the economy with supply chain. And we saw how difficult it was during COVID. So anyway, enough of my blather. Put a big old bow on this one, Erika Voss.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it all starts with us as a community. Zero trust is really what we need to do from a transportation's perspective, specifically within DAT. I think some of the things I would love to talk about there, just as we think about the future, is we're getting ready to launch our new identity verification system for DAT1, which is huge. We're modernizing and we're continually modernizing and investing. And it's a different philosophical and technology approach from what the market is doing today. And it's a response to our brokers in a streamlined way that we really want to say, hey, here's how we're actually going to reconcile that carrier's physical and digital identities. Again, you've heard me talk a lot about the identity, and it comes back to that identity piece. And I think that's what we're seeing now. And I think it's the market is saying, much to your point, we need to tighten things up. We need to say, I don't want another vendor that I have to worry about. I don't want another person that I have to have risk of sharing my data with. And again, it's the verify but trust, but that trust is the key piece at the end of the day. And so I think it's going to be exciting. I think you'll see with us, again, acquiring trucker tools, and I think you'll see about the future of where we're going. It's going to be a really powerful time. And I think that's the piece that I would tell anybody within the supply chain industry is it comes down to that customer trust, and it comes down to what we're doing and where we're going and growing. And as an industry, we've got to be better, and you've got to think about cybersecurity all the time. Again, it's not the if it happens, it's when it happens. And don't wait and look for your version of an Erika after you've been hit.
Right. Yeah. And I think also, again, it's not the IT guy's problem. It's by the way,
it starts with the top.
Well, this happened during COVID. All of a sudden, the head of supply chain was invited to the table. And we've had IT at the table for a while. Now we need to make room for cybersecurity.
You do. You need to make sure cybersecurity is at your table, and you need to make sure that you're listening to them. It's not just about lateral movement. It is about detections and response. And it is about, are you making sure that you have defense in depth? It's all the things that matter. Again, the ultimate thing, it comes down to your architecture.
Yeah. See, this is the problem, Eric. You guys have all this crazy jargon. And so we're intimidated to have you guys at the table.
It's okay though, because you know what, Joe? You go get yourself your Erika, and Erika's going to break down the tech speak to the non-technical people. And I'm going to make sure you understand it. Again, you've got to find the right person that fits your business model.
Dr. Erika will fix it for you.
I will come fix it for you.
Put a big Band-Aid on it.
Yes, I will.
So what conferences will we see you and the fine folks from DAT at? I know the answer is every conference where logistics and transportation supply.
Yeah, the big ones, at least for me, is MATS is coming up, the Mid-American Trucking Show. I'm super excited to come attend that one. I think that's a great opportunity to really listen to your customers. TIA is another big one that comes up. That's always a great one that I really like to go out and listen to our brokers and hear the challenges that they continue to have and be able to provide solutions. I'll be speaking at MATS. I'll be moderating at TIA. And then, quite frankly, whatever else comes up, we have DATCon that'll happen later this year in September in Chicago. So that'll be always a really good one. There's always cybersecurity sessions. I make sure we have at that one. And yeah, and when in doubt, reach out is what I tell people. If you have questions or comments, I'm here for you.
Erika, what I'll do is I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile, a link to your website, and any of the links you and your marketing team give me, I will put those in the show notes so people can reach out and talk to you. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Joe. It's been fantastic as always. I look forward to a part 2 with you, my friend.
Yes, me too. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward.
You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.